That's going to be the normal. Introduce yourselves and what you both do.
Okay, well, my name is Mimi Wilcox, and I'm a documentary filmmaker and editor. Most recently, I directed the Oscar shortlisted documentary short Bad Hostage.
And I am Max Asaf. I am also a documentary filmmaker and sometimes fiction filmmaker, mostly producing and archival producing. And I was the producer and archival producer on Mimi's Oscar shortlisted Bad Hostage.
Nice. So you're similar to Jesse,
Yeah.
other Jesse.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Because Jesse and I are working on a project that I may or
Are
may not
you?
bring up.
Oh,
Since I know
cool.
our current director, who I'm assisting officially, I got upgraded recently.
Very cool.
He wants us to talk about it more. So I
Awesome.
might bring it up. I know I've been wanting to bring Jesse back on here too to talk
Yeah, I
about it
miss
with me.
Jesse. I haven't seen him in a minute.
I've been,
Was
yeah,
Jesse was
Jesse,
Jesse
well, we're both
archival?
Jesse H's, so it's confusing,
Yeah.
but they're a E and I'm an I, and they can edit stuff, and I can't. I have to get support to edit stuff.
Yeah, Jesse was an AP on Twin Flames, and then yeah, has worked as an AE, and yeah, has worn a lot of hats and an editor.
Got it.
Jesse's great. They're in LA.
Yeah, him and I are both supporting the director right now for the docuseries. I'll just say it's on autism that we're
Yeah,
doing when
cool.
media and what that looks like, how we're portrayed as autistic individuals. We've been doing this for, I think, 2 years now. We've been just working behind the scenes, but I took more on the role of assistant director because I don't think we can have two
Ooh.
directors, but I'm technically doing what you would do as director, but we'll keep title assistant.
Sure.
But yeah. I know, yeah, but anyways, I know it's important to the director to talk about it because how we're portrayed in media is pretty important, which also how Bad Hostage portrays, which I always forget the name of the title of the thing that is the number one thing.
Stock Stockholm syndrome
Thank
or
you. I
yep.
always forget quickly. Yes, how that's portrayed in your documentary, which I really, really loved. It held my attention, which says a lot for my ADHD side. But what inspired you to open with your grandma, starting in the intro of some of the beginning of it towards the audience? Because I personally love the way you did that. It made it more intimate.
Yeah. The film always we wanted to keep it sort of grounded in my grandmother's story because that's where the process began for us was with my grandma, and that was always kind of the most emotional, the most personal, the most intimate part of the storytelling. And so at a certain point when we were thinking about the film and we're trying to figure out how to structure the film, we wanted to give some kind of allusion to the fact that we would be having these other stories in the film, the story of Patty Hearst and the story of Christina and Mark in Stockholm. And we wanted people to kind of be clued in that it wouldn't just be in my grandmother's story. But I think it's still, we got a piece of advice at a certain point that when we were structuring the film, we should always have my grandmother's story be leading the way. And I think we found that that was true in the very beginning of the film too, where if we just started with archive of these other stories, it wasn't true to what the kind of driving force of the film was, which was my grandmother. So even just starting on that image of her really kind of changed the way it played. And then, we kind of end on a similar image of her. So we bookend the film with my grandmother staring into the camera. And I think that helps again just sort of ground the film in her story.
Yeah, and it is, I mean, like Mimi's grandmother, Michaela, is just like such a both on camera and off camera, compelling, engaging, charismatic woman and storyteller. And like we really just like wanted audiences immediately to connect with her because like once you put her on screen, it's impossible to not connect with her. Or once you meet her in person, it's impossible to not connect with her. She is just that incredible, like magnetic person. So when we got that piece of advice, it really like unlocked like, oh yeah, let's just like the heart and soul of the film is so wrapped up in Michaela. Let's just like give audiences that. And I think like something I haven't really like expressed, but I think it makes like starting with the image of Michaela kind of like looking direct to camera and ending with that image of Michaela direct to camera, it kind of like trying to implicate the audience and like connect with her, hear her story, and then we end with that kind of like gaze again of like, now what do you think? Like you've met this woman, like you've heard her story, like she's looking at you now, like what would you do? Kind of, yeah. It's just a thought that, yeah.
Well, it was powerful. I really like the image of, well, it's the image that you guys use to advertise, but I do like the image of just her looking straight at you, literally. But it is powerful just hearing someone that is technically unknown and then using people that are known or kind of
Mhm.
still unknown because I didn't hear of either one of them before. And I had to look them up during the documentary because autism. But I looked it up just to better educate. And actually, Patty Hearst, I believe, she really caught me, at least from my own experience being in a cult with Jeff and
Yeah.
Shalia, who are still running. That kind of brought that idea. And I like the way that it was more victim centered. So it was similar to the docuseries versus look at the bad guys. At least with me on my true crime channel, I focus on the victim, not the perpetrator. And I like that this documentary did the same thing. You focused on the victim or survivor, however they see themselves, because that wasn't ever
Yeah.
said in the documentary how they see themselves, not even with your grandmother of how she sees herself. But
Mhm.
yeah, I like that it was actually centered on the victim and their story and how
Mhm.
they see things, not on how the perpetrator saw things. And
Yeah.
even pointing at police, because police, in my personal opinion, aren't always helpful and aren't ever, in my experience, on the victim's side. But yeah, I like that that was highlighted. It wasn't as immediately highlighted, but I do like the fact it actually was highlighted. Just wanted to praise that portion that I really liked.
Yeah, no,
But
I
yeah,
think that was something we really wanted to, because like for Mimi's grandma's story, obviously this is the first time it's being told, but for Patricia and, or not the first time, but like the first time in a very long time, but for Patricia and Christine, like their stories have been told and told again in a lot of different ways and often has not centered them and their stories. And so that was something that we really like, not just using the archival of them, but like making sure that the archival we used of them was like always like them expressing themselves and like telling their story and their true experience of what situations they went through and like wanting to kind of present the way that their story was narrativized, but always coming back and like grounding it in their perspectives and like making sure that we weren't just like kind of we wanted to be very intentional of not kind of perpetuating narratives that have already existed around their stories and kind of like just stripping it away and being like, here's Patricia, here's Christine, here's the noise surrounding them, but like let's ground in them.
We get a
which I
lot of
really
questions. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. I was just saying I really like it, but go ahead, Mimi.
We get a lot of questions about whether we spoke to the police for the film or whether we spoke to Doug and Dave or whether, and there's various reasons we didn't, but one of them being that I really did want to be intentional about the perspective of this film, and the perspective of this film is from is it is my perspective and it is my family's perspective, right? And so the only original interviews we did for the film were with them. And then, as Max said, in the archival stories, we really tried to present it in Patricia and Christine's own words. And so, it doesn't mean those other perspectives aren't important, but, it's something that, as you did, you can look up and you can learn more about. And with this film, we did have this particular point of view of the people who were sort of most directly impacted by these experiences.
Which is important. I actually didn't put any questions on police because I personally have my own bias on it. So I have zero interest on whether,
Totally.
just so you guys know, I like the approach you took because police tend to get more of a say
Yeah.
because I have been doing my own on my YouTube channel of trying to separate podcast and doing true crime disability since that is the most under recognized, under spoken about. And if they are in the news, it's for a day and tends to be locally or not at all.
Hmm.
Or you have to hear locally, period, about those who are getting murdered or raped. And they're the highest, who are 80% compared to normal, just the ones you hear about all the time. So on my true crime, I focus on them. And the sad part is you can't get much information on the victim itself. So I have to kind of play around with that because I don't care about the perpetrator. I don't care about, because most of the time the
Yeah.
police involved don't care about the individual.
Hmm.
So personally, that will come out even on my podcast too, that where I stand, I will never focus on them because they already get all the attention, all the praise, especially when they hurt a victim further, they get further praise. And if they actually rape them themselves, they get further praise or murder them themselves. I've read many cases already like that of those with disabilities. So that's so you guys know fully where I stand on that.
Hmm.
I feel me
So,
on that. That's why I liked that you guys didn't bring that perspective in at all. I was scared it was going to happen and actually had to pause in one part of it of, oh my goodness, this is where they might do it. Please don't.
yeah.
And then I
Well, I'm
played
glad
it.
we didn't
And
let you down.
thank goodness
Hmm.
you didn't let me down. I was so scared. You have no idea. But thankfully, you stuck with the victim centered, which is good. For those that don't, such as myself, that forgets every 2 seconds after even learning about it, what is Stockholm Syndrome? And not just the actual definition, what it is to you and Max also.
Totally. So Stockholm Syndrome is this idea that was first kind of conceived of in the case in Stockholm that's covered in the film, where there was a bank heist where several people were held hostage. And afterwards, some of the women who had been held hostage expressed sympathy for their captors, expressed that they had felt more threatened by the police than they did by their captors. The concept got further sort of popularized with the kidnapping of Patricia Hearst in the US. This was all in around 1973 and 1974. And then the idea just got kind of spread like wildfire, is what we always say. So it's now kind of used as a metaphor. You hear people talk about Stockholm syndrome in legal cases. You hear people talk about Stockholm syndrome in sitcoms. You hear it in politics. It's just sort of a very widely used term that sort of implies there's often an implication of, someone falling in love with their captor, of a sexual element between a person who's held hostage or kidnapped and their captor, in this idea that women in particular experience this sort of neurosis where they fall in love with or are seduced by their captor. And I guess the way we challenge that in the film is to look at both a kind of personal instance and then also these two more famous cases of Stockholm Syndrome, of the kind of origin, the founding of Stockholm Syndrome, and point out how, if you look at the actual details and actual facts of these cases, it doesn't really look like these women were behaving in a neurotic or insane way, but that they were actually having a very rational reaction to their circumstances. And that, a reason they might have felt more sympathy with their captors is because the police were behaving, the people who are ostensibly there to save them were actually putting them in greater danger. The authorities were telling them explicitly in each of these cases that their lives were not their top priority, that keeping them safe was not their top priority, and that in fact their top priority was sort of seeking vengeance or unleashing violence on their captors. And so when you look at the actual details of these cases, you see how appending this moniker of Stockholm Syndrome is really a way for the authorities to shift attention away from their own failures and instead put the blame on the women in these situations to kind of deflect attention away from the ways that they failed. So that's a little bit of how it's generally known, and then what we look at specifically in the film, and hope that people walk away from it with a different understanding of the concept of Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah. And just to like add some more to Mimi's last point, like the origination of the term Stockholm syndrome that we show in the film from this bank heist in Stockholm, Sweden, the police psychologist who came up with this term, Stockholm syndrome, Dr. Niels Beirut, was kind of in charge of the police response to the hostage situation in this bank in Sweden. And Christine Enmark, who was one of the hostages, came out and kind of directly criticized him and the police writ large for their response, where they just had snipers positioned all around the building. They were kind of indiscriminately firing. They ended up like freeing the hostages by filling this vault that the hostages were in with gas to smoke them out. And she, after this ordeal, was not happy and made it known that she was not happy, and she directly called Niels Beirut out. And after that happened was when he said, "Oh, you can't listen to her. She's crazy. She's got Stockholm syndrome." So it's just like the film, we really want to like interrogate this, like the first time that this label was used, it was used in such a targeted and like intentionally pathologizing way in order to silence the experience of this woman. So we're like, if it's been proliferated this much, it's been rotten at the core, like from its inception. Like we have to like kind of question who is benefiting when a term like Stockholm syndrome is applied, and like what gets lost. Yeah.
Like it was kind of formed from gaslighting, at least going by the actual
Yeah.
Yeah,
definition. It's gaslighting, being told, no, your reality of what you experienced isn't correct.
exactly.
Exactly.
I know gaslighting very well.
I know
Yes.
you do.
But yeah, I do try to educate, whether it's doing true crime or on my podcast, people about signs of gaslighting. Right
Mhm.
there is full on. And even when you go into the origin, I try to do origins of definitions purposely just to try to point out where that comes from too.
Yeah.
So I like that you did that. And well, you both did that in your documentary. I keep
Mhm.
on wanting to say docu-series, so I
I
apologize.
know.
That's why it looks like I'm thinking hard because I am. I love that. Oh yeah, I wrote this down because I want to make sure I said it. I love that you kept the guidelines to your grandma in the beginning.
Mhm.
What made you want to work and tell, I guess, your family story, since that's what you said earlier, your family story.
What made me want to tell my family story?
Yeah.
So I kind of realized in the course of making this film that I come from a family of storytellers. That wasn't always totally clear to me, but really when I think about where this came from, it came from the fact that my mom had told me this story my whole life. My mom has all sorts of stories from her wacky childhood, and this is one of the ones that she told me the most. And I loved it. It's this very dramatic story of, this time that she was held hostage with my grandma. And there were all these dramatic moments in this story. I really remembered my mom telling me the story about how the cop had called my grandma an ignorant slut.
Oh,
And I
gee.
really remembered this punchline at the end where the FBI come and they're looking for Patty Hearst and they say, Patty's in the barn because they have a horse named Patty. And so I just always really loved this story. And I had started looking into it and found these newspaper articles about it, found this archival footage, and kind of found all this corroborating material that it wasn't just this kind of, family lore mythology, but it was this thing that really had happened just as my mom described it. And then I asked my grandmother to tell me the story because I had only ever really heard it from my mom, not from my grandma directly. And when we sat down and did that interview, I discovered what an incredible, I mean, not really, just, I guess I knew this, but it really hit me what an incredible storyteller my grandmother is too, because she was so amazing in this interview. She was incredible on camera, and that's what really that was the point of no return for me, was sitting down and hearing her tell me this story. And so that I just had to move forward with it at that point. It's sort of three generations of women telling this story.
Which is perfect, considering women are the ones getting blamed for their own experience. So it's very fitting.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. Yeah, so it's been I think powerful for all three of us to revisit this together with this film and kind of set the record straight on her story with this film. So
I'm getting noms so quickly. I don't even know how that works. Every time I see posts from anyone on that, I don't understand how that works. Even for Escaping Twin Flames, it just feels like
yeah.
magic when it happens. You understand how that works. I don't understand how that works.
I don't know that I do understand how that works, Jesse.
Okay, never mind. You don't understand how that works either.
We're learning a little bit. We're learning a little bit for sure.
Okay, because as soon as you did it, I went, what? How did that happen? Does someone just put something in a basket? And I don't understand that. I tried
Yeah,
really hard.
it's a little bit of a black box for sure.
Okay, I'll trust you on that. I know Jesse's tried to explain it to me before. Like, I can get things explained to me, but without
Yeah.
pictures and more explaining and an actual context, I don't understand. And so far with the any nominations and or awards, there has been no context, no anything to go with it. So welcome how my
Totally. And it's a little bit like yeah, it is a little bit of a black box. I think like we had a really long journey with this film. We first premiered it in June of 2024 at a
oh,
film
okay.
festival. And that we had a really lovely festival run with it. So we had the premiere in June, and then we continued showing it at different festivals for about a year. And in the spring, we screened it at two different festivals where we won like the best short award at those, or we won actually a few of them, but at two in particular that were Oscar qualifying awards. So there's
Um,
certain film festivals where certain awards are Oscar qualifying. So if you win that award, you qualify for the Oscars. So that's what happened first is we won two of these qualifying awards and in the spring and we were like, wow, how exciting. That's amazing. What does that mean? And so we had a few months to kind of figure out what that meant. And then we really leaned on our own mentors who helped us understand, who had been through this process before, who helped us understand, what it would look like to embark on that journey. And then in the fall, we started campaigning. So that was just kind of a more intentional approach to having screenings for the film, kind of like reaching out to our networks, kind of really trying to spread word of mouth about the film, finding the people in our lives who were tapped into the Academy in this kind of world, who really loved the film and who really wanted to champion the film and advocate for the film. So it was a lot of that and meeting people and going to screenings and hosting screenings. And then once we got shortlisted, it was doing, social media stuff and doing interviews and press. And so
Email blasts,
email
the email
blast.
blasts. Oh my gosh, all the email
Yeah.
blasts.
I've never sent so many emails in my life. So it was
I've never
a,
posted on Instagram so much
oh
in my
yeah,
life. I'm like,
I know.
jeez.
Yeah, exactly. It was a little much. So I'm ready to kind of withdraw from the world for a minute now, but
don't blame you, huh?
yeah, it was quite a process.
I'd
Yeah.
say
And it's
that's,
so like I feel like every day we learn something new that we
Yeah.
should be doing. And then it was like a process of like I mean like obviously we did not make this film like intending it to like to be an
No,
Oscar film and to
it
like
was
do this
total
campaign
shock.
with it. It was just like, yeah, I mean we won at these Oscar qualified fests. Let's submit for the Oscars. And then we did some campaigning pre-shortlist, but it was like very just like have a couple screenings and just kind of like
Well,
get the
it was kind of
word out.
intense.
It was
I
intense. It was,
it was pretty
I
intense.
think like relative to the next phase, I
Yeah.
like lessen it in my mind. It was still intense, but like during like after shortlisting, I think it was just like every day we were learning something new and we
Yeah.
had to like it was such an accelerated timeline that it was like because we got shortlisted on the 16th of December and voting started, I think, the 12th of January. So, and it was like you got the holidays and New Year's in there. So it was like every day learning something new and then like turning it around and like executing on that on the same day. And like so much of it was like, it was like intense, but it was also like really fun. And I think
Yeah.
it speaks volumes of like the documentary community that it was like a fun process that like we made like great like friends and relationships with like the other shortlisted filmmakers, both in the shorts and the features categories. And then, like Mimi was saying, we just had so many mentors and people who have like supported us in the film that who were so generous with their time and their advice, whether it was just like hopping on a call with us to chat through something or like hosting a screening for us. Like it really, it at no point felt like a like competition, like a super competitive like it's us versus them. Like it felt
Yeah.
like even to like the point that like there were just like virtual hangouts for like the shortlisted filmmakers to just like get together and like chat. It was nice to see the doc community in in this process that it is like there like without anything, I'm sure there's less savory elements, but like during this process, like the like real community and like collaborative spirit of the community came out in a beautiful way. So it was like really cool and unexpected to kind of see that.
which can be a good thing. I like that. And thank you
Yeah.
for at least giving me, now I actually understand that process because having the qualifying, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's,
Yes.
yeah. See, I'm very context person. When I only have a
And it's
conversation and there's nothing to back that, that means nothing to me. That's like saying, hi, sky is blue. There's an
yes.
Yeah.
example. Do you understand what I just said? That's how it feels for me. That's the best way I can describe that. Or like when I was
Totally.
actually on the set of Escaping Twin Flames, which I've never
Yeah.
talked about, but I will be re-talking about in my memoir too. But I feel like it's very fitting with what we're talking about. But
Yeah.
like when I had both Cecilia and Ball and Brain work. Darn it, I hate when I do this. I know her
Morgan?
name. I
Morgan,
just am
maybe?
forgetting. What?
Morgan?
Thank you. Morgan. Sorry, Morgan. I know your name. My brain just
We love you,
chooses
Morgan.
stuff. When they were trying to describe to me audience and what audience would understand
Yeah,
versus not understand, honestly, it was too many words. I can't do too
totally.
many words. I've actually learned a lot of my own needs with my diagnosis
Mm,
that my
Hmm.
person who diagnosed me didn't understand. But yeah, it makes sense why on set I was so overwhelmed and
yeah,
understanding. For one, I had too many words. I had three people telling me three different things that didn't
totally.
align. That's why I wanted to give you guys an example of what it feels like to be
Yeah,
talking to someone and understands what's going
Totally.
on in front of
yeah,
me. And I guarantee you, I will have no idea what it's coming from.
totally.
But yeah. And even if there are those disabilities in films in general, which are now getting back to what was already in existence, which is being pushed over to the side and ignored.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, which thankfully, inclusion. You seem to be very inclusive,
Yes.
even in your documentary, to me at least, because technically, elderly does count within the disabilities, or
It's true.
I don't know the correct nice word to use, but that's what most people say is elderly.
Right.
Hmm.
No, I don't know. I don't want anyone to be offended.
Yeah.
Sure they won't.
I know my grandma would snap at me if I called her elderly, so
My grandma might too, actually, to be honest.
okay,
Yeah.
whatever your
I
grandma
mean,
would like me to say, that is what I will say. That is not towards her, though.
there's even the line in the film where your mom Amy is like,
My
"Grandma's gonna
aunt.
sit here,"
My
or
aunt.
you're yeah,
Yeah.
is it yeah? And Michaela's like, "I am not grandma."
Yeah.
Like,
Well, good. At least our family members do very similar things. My
Exactly.
grandma
yes.
is
There you go.
grandmama, or let's see, what else does she prefer? She has very specific terms she prefers that I never ever, if I do call her elderly, she calls me a young whippersnapper.
Oh,
What else? I've had many names. It's hard to keep track of them all. I try my
Do you
best to
identify? Do you
as a
identify as a young
whippersnapper.
whippersnapper?
I'm fine with being a whippersnapper. I honestly find it amusing. So
Yes.
perfect.
whatever your grandma, however she sees herself, whether that's a young lady or elderly or I don't know any other words, so she would have to give me more words for me to
I'll
have
ask
the
her
correct
next time I talk to her.
because I'm trying to be respectful in this interview too. So yeah, it's hard. I don't have the language, so I'm sorry ahead of time. Trying. I
Well,
might
we're
look
all just
like
whippersnappers here, so
I love that. Like, that's right. We're whippersnappers. Big mouths on us. At least that's what
yeah.
my grandma says. I might not have many words, but I got a mouthy apparently. Let's see. I think it's funny how I decided to write this, but that's okay. I'm gonna stick with the way I wrote it. Is stranger danger an important part of this family story?
Oh, interesting. That's a great question, Jesse. I think that one of the parts of this story that a lot of people either struggle with or just are struck by is this kind of initial action of my grandmother letting these men into her home. And I think that that can be really hard to wrap your mind around, this idea of someone showing up at your door in the middle of the night, to the idea of inviting two strange men into your home. And for her part, my grandmother can be very self-deprecating and she's sort of like, what a stupid thing to, I don't know why I did that kind of thing. But and I do think there's something very powerful about how she approached the situation. I think that she really just kind of refused to make any assumptions about who these men were based on what they looked like or what, she just really kind of engaged with them as people, as individuals at each moment in their interactions. And, I think that there's definitely something to learn from the way she engaged with them. It doesn't mean that, you need to let strange people into your home. I think also it was a different time, there weren't cell phones. They were asking to use a phone. There's a lot of kind of different circumstances there. So I don't think it was a good or a bad choice that she made, and I don't think it would be the right or wrong choice for each individual person, but I do think there's something powerful about the worldview that she had that led her to make that decision, and who knows how it might have gone either way. but I think she handled it really beautifully. So that's how I would
And
respond to that.
and I think there's also like an implicit like not the opposite, but like a corollary of like that we try to challenge of like there's an implicit trust in the police that people should have. Like if there's stranger danger, like when the police shows up, like that's the narrative at least of like they're here to help and they're here to like you can trust them. And obviously like the position we take in the film is and in the world today, no, like that like they're not like so I think just like it's not necessarily that you can't trust every stranger, but it's also like challenge like who society is telling us we can trust and who we can't trust because
Yes.
like in the case of the police, like we're told like trust them and then they come and exacerbate the violence and bring this kind of antagonistic winning focused mentality to situations that ends up endangering the people who are in need of help and support in those situations and don't get
Yes.
from the source they're supposed to be getting it from.
Yes, our current administration would like us to think that the people we should have stranger danger for are immigrant neighbors, when in fact,
Hmm.
the strangers who are actually dangerous right now are the ICE agents. So,
Right.
Hmm.
ICE sucks.
yep.
Yeah.
Just like
And it's like you see
Dr.
it.
Lalich, she said this way in the
Yeah.
past, but it wasn't towards ICE. It was just fuck fascism.
Yep.
And it's they're
Ism,
within
I can
there.
speak.
Yeah.
Yep.
But now it is fuck ICE fully.
Truly
And
fuck ice.
also, technically, one thing that I do actually like about this administration, a lot of stuff that is being brought up has already always been there, but now everyone's all shocked of, oh my
Exactly. It's so
goodness,
true.
it's always been there, racism, disabilities, trying to
Yes.
kill those who are disabled, trying to kill those who are
Yes.
not white or white presenting. That's always been there. I've dealt with it my entire life being disabled. So now that it's coming
Hmm.
up, I'm like, yes, hallelujah. People get to see the truth. Let's see how long they accept it for. Because most of
Yeah.
the time it's, oh, I'll accept it for a day. Cool. How long are they going
Yeah.
Hmm.
to accept it this round as it continuously happens every single day? I don't know.
Yes.
So far, I've seen a mixture, including with those I work with, of acceptance denial or acceptance nope, it's not actually happening. So I've learned just from my own experience in a cult, if never accept the lies and always accept the truth and first pick out the
Hmm.
lies and then find, well, once you find that truth, hold on to it and don't ever let it go. So in my case, that's what I do every day. I see the lies. And if a family member tries to convince me or not purposely gaslight me, because I know it's not on purpose. It's because they've accepted
Hmm.
that reality. Then I go, no, that's not true. You should really do more of a background check. Thanks for telling me, though. That's normally how I have it now
Hmm.
with them.
Yeah.
Just like at work, if anyone tries to touch me there, I go, you should probably do more research. Or I send
Hmm.
them to Escaping Twin Flames on Netflix. I
Yes.
Perfect.
go, you can watch it there. Or I send them to my YouTube channel, or I send them right now to podcasts if they prefer to listen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's you either accept the lies or accept the truth. In this case, there is no, it is definitely black and white right now, at least when it comes to those choices in the news. You either accept the lie or you accept the truth.
Yep.
Yeah. And
And
I
I
mean like
know there's a lot of misinformation out there, so I do
Yeah.
understand the acceptance of the lie, but there's a certain point that I don't understand that and won't accept the lie myself.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and especially you're just like seeing like obviously a different flavor of it, but like a similar just like the narrative that gets pushed after something like Alex Preddy's murder yesterday, like in the
Terrible.
immediate labeling of him as a domestic terrorist by the right and by the administration, and it's like you just see the machinations of the narrativization of like, trying to deny reality and trying to deny the truth of a situation just like happening so fast in that instance, and it's horrifying, and it's just like so necessary to just like look with our own eyes and hear with our own ears and see the reality and not let these fascists kind of try to dictate what that reality is for us. And it's it's scary. It's very scary.
Well, the point is to get you scared. That's why with
Yeah.
me, I first, at least this is all that I've taken from being in a cult since, well, Dr. Lalich said he's a cult leader, so I'm just going to straight out, he's a cult leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That they want you to get scared because they want you to think they're
Yeah.
winning, when in reality, if you look at the truth, they aren't. It's as
Yeah.
simple as that. With me, I hold to the truth and see where everything is happening. Because if, which you're allowed to, everything you feel, I want everyone to know that it's good to feel the fear. Anything you're feeling is fine. That's okay. Don't push away from it. Do feel it, but do
Yeah.
remember the truth, because I
We've
feel
got the
like everyone
truth.
I've personally been around or talked to continue to forget that or not see it. Even those I'm working with on my documentary, I remind him, our director, daily that the fear, that's what they want. It's
Yeah.
not true. It's not, well, it is real. That feeling is absolutely real. I will not deny that, but it's okay to feel it. But yeah. Anyways, I'm around a lot of psychologists daily. You're welcome.
Could I ask you a question, Jesse?
What? Oh, the
Could
next
I
one.
ask you a
Yes, I
question?
was trying to
Or
read
no,
it.
could
Oh,
I ask you a question?
yeah, go for it.
I just wanted to know like how has it been like going from like participant in a docu series to being assistant director? And I guess like what I'm just fascinated to know like what that kind of process has been like
I
for
honestly
you.
love it. I've been getting ideas for my own documentary that I've been pre-planning in my head. I was gonna even ask Mimi to join eventually, but it's not
Uh,
fully planned. But you're welcome. I'm telling you now, Mimi. I was actually gonna try to bring a lot of people that were originally on the docu-series back on with me for this documentary idea I have that's not fully formed, therefore I'm not telling you guys about it until it's fully formed.
Totally fair.
But
I
I
Mhm.
know how
would
that
like to
goes.
bring you guys on
I know how
because
that
I
goes.
am learning more of the ropes doing this one as assistant, which I do love.
Yeah.
Because funny enough, in the past, I at least told Inval this, but in the past, I did do directing work of getting a whole cast together. I only made it to the getting the cast together, getting the filmmakers together. I
Mhm.
have connections here in Colorado of filmmakers, but
Cool.
I did make it that far. We just never made it to the actual filming part. We had a script. I casted everyone. I did all that. So I do have background. I just don't have
Yeah.
Mhm.
background of finished products.
Yeah.
So that's all I can say. I do have backgrounds. And right now I'm really excited for the one that's forming in my head, but because of my disability, it takes me at least 2 months to 3 months longer than the individual to get it fully there, but it's almost fully
Totally.
formed. I just need to make sure I have a plan. That's the only way I
Yeah.
bring it up. But I would
Yeah.
like to bring pretty much everyone originally from the docu-series and doing similar roles to what they were already doing. And yes, payments would happen, but I'm learning that through this one right now. But yeah, I would like to make it happen because it would be victim focused, because I believe
Mhm.
strongly in that. But it's very likely about people with disabilities,
Cool.
done by a person with disabilities within
Yeah.
very inclusive people. That's why I choose specifically
Love
each one. I wouldn't choose Mimi unless she proved herself, and she has more than so have you, Max.
I can't wait to
that.
hear this idea once it's fully.
Yes.
What?
I
Sorry.
can't wait to hear this idea once it's fully formed.
Gonna be a while. Like I
Take your time.
forewarned. It's okay.
I
It
mean,
literally
Oh,
takes me
you've
longer than
experienced how long it takes me to do things, so
well, it's just
yes.
because my
no
brain
judgment.
processing, not everyone understands that. Like, you can have a conversation with me now. I probably won't even process this entire conversation until like a week from now. But
For
my
Totally
sure.
fair.
processing speed isn't like a normal person. So, when you have a conversation with a normal person that's not neurodivergent, because some ADHD people can actually do it in the moment. But me being autistic and strongly autistic, yes, I have ADHD, but that's not my strong part.
Right.
But
Hmm.
I don't process words. I don't read fast at all. I read probably as fast as a first grader, but everything takes longer for me. But I love writing and I love film. I got a passion for docuseries through the docuseries and documentaries. I've been watching them since. So it became a special interest and it hasn't died. So therefore that tells me it's a forever
Yes.
special interest, just like Pokemon. This is one of my,
Yep.
I have no shame in sharing my fidgets because I want other people with autism to know that they're not alone. And I love Pokemon. This is my fidget, one of many.
I've
I did
got
we
my
talk
fidget with me right now. Like I've just
Really?
been I hope it's not been coming up on the feed, but I've just got this little guy with his little like just bending him in different ways.
It's so cool. I have to do soft and squishy. It's the only way I
Yeah.
can do it.
I don't remember if we talked last time about how I'm a big Pokemon fan too.
Yeah, you actually showed me. I never
I had my
forgot, but it
little,
wasn't
right?
during the recording, but
That's
you
what I
showed me
thought.
one of
Yeah.
yours. I
I
love
had
that.
mine.
You've got your big Charizard, right?
Yeah, let me
Somewhere.
show you, Jesse.
Mimi, you
Actually,
should. Oh my gosh. Mimi rules more than I thought.
I have a
Oh yeah,
Charmander, not a Charizard,
Charmander.
but
You gotta get it right. Jeez.
Hey, that's my
There you
bad.
go. I'll show
I'd
you.
say.
Like Charmander.
oh, perfect. They match.
Oh my gosh, Mimi, you rule. I love that so much.
Love Pokemon. We'll
I'm
never outgrow
obsessed.
I
it.
Well,
I'm on
if
the outside. I was raised a Yu-Gi-Oh boy. For
that's
some, that was
okay.
I have
my
Blastoise.
you
I
could have
told you I
blessed
got a lot of
us.
fidgets here for interviews for when I do true crime because of anxiety. So I'm
Yeah.
petting, playing with
Oh,
here, playing
I
with
love
here. It's
that.
just how I do fidgets.
That's great.
How I stay calm and focused.
Totally.
Not that well
But
focused.
what you were saying though about documentary is a great special interest to have because it is like it's inherently documentary takes a long time, and so it's like a great like I mean like our film it was 6 years. Like there's a film I've been working on that has been like 8 or 9 years. Like it's just like not every documentary needs to take that long, but like it's a medium that like time and patience is rewarded, and like sometimes there's like a go go go, you have to capture it in the moment. But I think like if we had finished Bad Hostage in like a year, it would not have been as good as a finished film. Like it needed time to develop.
Needed
So
time.
like as you're like kind of like iterating on your own idea, like let it take time because like it definitely like it needs to breathe like a good wine. I don't drink wine. I don't know if that's
I
true or
don't drink
not,
wine
but
either. I don't drink beer. I do drink root beer though.
root beer is right.
It has
Maybe
Totally.
an
beer in
aged
it.
root beer is even better than a fresh root beer. I'm not sure, but
I
I wouldn't be
I yeah,
surprised.
I
maybe
love
not
root
like
beer.
an aged like A&W, but like an aged like artisanal root beer. Yeah.
Ooh, I like homemade root beer, honestly, is my favorite. So when
Ooh.
places like make, I don't like the canned stuff. I like making homemade stuff. I love cooking. It's an obsession.
One
But at least with documentaries and docuseries, it
yeah.
literally has to do if Mimi's done it, I'll watch it. If Zoe's done it, I'll watch it. It's the only way I'll watch it, honestly. If there's someone with disabilities in the documentary, that's the
Yeah.
only way I'll actually watch it. But I have to know the person behind it, or else I'm not
Mhm.
watching it. It's as simple as that. Bad
Totally.
Hostage only made me interested because Mimi was the forefront of it. That was my only interest, just being honest. If she wasn't, I wouldn't watch
Appreciate the
it.
honesty.
Yes.
Just like when Zoe's done the Christmas tree one, I know she's doing
Yeah.
some true crime thing too. I haven't watched the other two, but I did watch her documentary on a mass murder person.
Well, I
And
haven't seen that one yet.
it's actually really good. They do
Really?
good
Okay.
backgrounds. I did get bored for a couple minutes because the
Yeah.
music got really boring, but other
Okay.
than that, they do a really good job of getting context, background,
Cool.
keeping your attention. But they did the similar thing, except with the perpetrator of going into the camera of his
Oh, yeah.
freaks me
Yeah.
out greatly, and I fast forward through.
Ooh.
But
Yeah. Spooky.
uh, yeah, that's just so you know, that's where my special interest is. It literally is the person. So if it's someone I don't know doing it, I don't care. They have to have someone who's of disabilities in order to get my attention.
Totally fair.
Totally.
The overlapping special interests.
Huh? You
Yes.
got it. The only way it works. That people don't always understand autism is very specific. If it's
Hmm.
Totally.
not, I'm more people-oriented autistic wise, so it depends on the person and what they're interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're not interested in what I'm interested in, I don't get offended. But yeah, welcome to autism. Like I said, it's guaranteed gonna come up, and here you go.
Yes.
Let's see. Wow, I worded that weird. Oh, I know why I wrote this question. Sorry, I had to think behind of why I wrote that. Do you believe it's common for most people in the 1970s to not be familiar with police? Since there was a line in the documentary that I wrote this question from. I guess your grandma, or however she sees herself, she wasn't familiar with the police, so that's where that question came from. Do you think it's normal from 1970s? Because I did consider the time period when I wrote these questions. That
Yeah.
was that normal? Was it not?
It's an interesting question. I think so. One thing I always do acknowledge when people ask about the police in this film, one thing that really is different from the 70s to now in terms of policing is hostage negotiations. So there. the way that the police handled this particular case with my grandmother, I hope would not be handled the same way today because those kind of techniques had not yet been kind of widely established, is my understanding. Doesn't give any kind of excuse to the way the sheriff behaved, the way that, it was absolutely abysmal. But that's one thing to be aware of, is that just that kind of approach to the situation is different today than it would have been. In terms of relationships with police, I don't know exactly. I don't know how different that is in the 70s to now. I think certainly kind of, I think a theme in our film is media and media coverage of these events, and that is something that has certainly changed from the 70s until now. And of course, if we look at how kind of more widespread video recording has enabled the capture of sort of evidence of police brutality in a new way, from Rodney King on. I think that that has certainly had an impact on people's relationships with policing or understanding of policing, certainly. So I wouldn't have the expertise to comment directly on kind of how common it was in the 70s versus now to consider yourself as someone who interacts much with the police, but I think that that is something that has changed since then, is that, you know, these things are now more frequently captured and and are harder to kind of hide away when the police misuse their power in this way.
That makes sense. I like that we actually do have cameras, but I don't like the fight back right now of that. I think that's stupid. We're holding
Yeah.
up your phone, not like I'm doing anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with that fully. Well, I know a little bit about the 70s only because my mom talks about it a lot, but
Yeah.
just culturally, women were nothing in the 70s is the best way to put it versus, well, now we're a little less than nothing, but that's about the only difference nowadays. That's all you can do. Because your rights can be taken away just as easy as they were then.
I know there's some things that's worse today, which is terrifying. But that was one of the things that was the most kind of shocking and upsetting while going through the newspaper coverage in particular of these three stories, is the way that women were described in the newspapers at the time. We
Yeah.
found like a number of instances of my grandmother being described as a small, attractive woman, which is just it's such an intentional choice, really, to describe her that way.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
so
it's kind of
clear.
gross.
It's so gross. And
Yeah.
she
And just
wasn't supposed
unnecessary.
yeah, and she was supposed to be a damsel in distress, and so she's
Yeah.
supposed to be small and beautiful and is, but and that's really weaponized against her, I think. So seeing the way that was used, and then I can never get over seeing Patty Hearst described in terms of her sexual history, just these
Mm.
things that are it's just an abysmal way to describe women, and to see these terms being used so casually in the media, these descriptions in the media at that time, it was really distressing.
To actually see even some of the media descriptions today, if you compare to your documentary, similar to today's, like pig, what
Mhm.
else has been
I
on
know. I know.
women?
I wish I could say that it had gotten better, and it's different today, but
Still
it's
the
worse in
It's
same,
other
just
honestly.
ways.
If
Yeah,
you
it's just
yeah.
bad in
compare
different ways. Yeah.
words and everything, and just how quickly, like if you even compare, it's not saying anything bad about the docuseries, just my own experience after the docuseries. We were called stupid.
Right.
What else? Naive. Oh, that would never happen to me. Well,
Right.
here we're at
Yeah.
today. Just want to point that out, but I actually take every opportunity I can pointing out
Yeah,
today. If it was true, we wouldn't have who we have in the administration right now.
it would.
But it can happen to anyone. And I like that in Dr. Lalich's Take Back My Life, she even says there's a cult for everyone, that if you think
Yes.
you're not susceptible, you're very wrong. There's a cult right
Hmm.
there for you.
That was my biggest kind of takeaway from working on that show and learning from Dr. Lalich. Definitely, it's what I always tell people, because yeah, people say that to me, going out in the world talking about escaping twin flames, who would say like, "Oh, like I can't believe like, people fall for this." And I'm like, there's a cult for you, buddy. Like there is a cult out there for
Hmm.
everybody. Maybe this wasn't the version of it that appealed to you, but there's something else out there for you for sure.
Yeah,
So,
because there's self-help, there's
exactly.
political,
Yes.
there's every
Hmm.
form you can come up. There's doggy mill ones, there's whatever you can come up
Totally.
with. It exists,
Totally.
whether you
Yeah.
are aware of it or not.
Exactly.
Just like Stockholm syndrome, because it does fall into that. That very
Totally.
much so plays a part even in victims slash survivors, however they see themselves in situations like your grandma was in, because I actually count that as a culty situation, considering how they came into the house, how
Sure.
things started to go down, and how she didn't really have many choices in her situation, yet
Right.
she wasn't credited
Right.
for the
Yes.
choices she did have.
Exactly.
Instead, it
Exactly.
had to go to the people that were supposed to be doing their jobs, but not. I
Mhm.
don't know how to put
But
it
not.
Well put.
differently.
Well put.
Yes.
I'm pretty
And
blunt.
and I think that's like, and like Michaela was supposed to be doing her job too, which was in the police's eyes, like waiting for them to save her, and she said no, and that's why so much of the backlash came out, because she didn't do the job that had been ascribed to her, because she saw the people who were supposed to be doing their jobs, the police, absolutely bungling it, and she was like, well, okay, I guess it's on me to kind of figure this out. And she did. And that's the thing. She did, and like in all three of these stories, like Christine, Patricia, and Michaela, they survived and they like lived in these like life or death situations. And instead of giving them any credit, like you were saying, Jesse, it just immediately was this discounting of their experience. And it's just like they survived. Like what, like, and Christine has that line in the film, like, what would you do? Like, you would not know until you're in that situation, and I'm very happy that, yeah, but it's just seeing the backlash at the time.
Well,
it's
it still
it's
exists
so interesting.
today.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Because
Oh yeah.
docuseries, I can use that nonstop, easy. Like I had to tell Inbal in our interview ourselves because she wasn't aware of it. And you can actually hear her reaction in that moment when I tell her. I went, yeah, the number one thing we got when we came out, every single person that was in the docuseries is, you're stupid.
Right.
How
Oh,
could you
I'm
do
so
that? What's
sorry.
wrong with you? That would never happen to
Yeah.
me. Those were the number one reactions.
Mhm.
Yes, there was definitely the positive, but there was more negative than positive. I
And that's
know
such a it's just such a distancing and just like unempathetic way of approaching it, and just like an uncurious way of just like, oh, that couldn't have happened to me, instead of just like looking at like the realities of your situation and like trying to like empathize and understand. And like it's, yeah, I'm sorry that you experienced that.
that's okay. And we'll apologize too. I don't ever look for apology. I just wish people would acknowledge
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
part in this because that's pretty much going up. So I even use this, which I actually hit someone's pain point when I did this, a
Mhm.
stranger, because they're doing this to a stranger too. I said, well, would you say that to a rape victim of you're stupid? Why did this happen to
Yeah.
you? Because that's the same equivalent, whether people want to accept that or not, it's the same equivalent. We had our autonomy taken away. We had our own thoughts and feelings denied and taken away and continued to be denied and taken away. And in some circumstances, maybe that did happen. I don't know. I wasn't there long enough to find out. But that's the same idea, same thing that happened to your grandmother or how she sees herself. I will always add that in there. However she sees herself. Same thing. She was denied. She wasn't given any acknowledgement. And same idea. That's what we got. It hasn't changed since then of what happens to a victim. The rape
Yep.
victims from the Epstein files, they're the ones doing the fighting. Legal team isn't doing it.
Hmm.
Anyone else isn't doing it. I'm still fighting for the predators that are still existing, in my personal opinion, and shouldn't still be operating at any level. They shouldn't be able to be on social media any longer, in my personal opinion. I shouldn't have had to make over 20 videos and will be making a video soon too, just to re-update. I
Mhm.
shouldn't be doing their work for them, in my personal opinion. I've done more work for them unpaid than I have at my actual job that I get paid at.
Mm.
That's the nicest way I can put it, but I
Yeah.
feel very strongly about that and feel the victim. Actually, Morgan, in our interview, which I'm going to make sure to keep for the
Mhm.
podcast, we talk about this. She says she hated how much work we had to do just to
Mhm.
get recognition of this happened to us.
Yes.
This is
Hmm.
real. This is not BS. And An epiphany I actually recently had, because this all falls into bad hostage no matter what, whether people can see it or not. At my work, I learned I've never been believed at my job, any of my jobs.
Hmm.
I've never been believed anywhere. It was a sad epiphany to have, but I've just started recently being believed at my work. At other places, my family's starting to believe me. It's interesting when you've always been seen as something you're not. My language is different, being autistic, so maybe my words are wrong. I don't know. I'm not aware of that. But just
What,
because my language is different. But yeah, go ahead, Mimi.
what do you ascribe that shift to? You said you are, I mean, I'm really happy to hear you feel that you are starting to be believed at your work and in your family. What do you think has changed? Is it just your hard work over the years or what?
It's my poem coming out in Cinder magazine that's meant
Oh.
for people with disabilities. It's named Ableism. I wrote that at a very sad point in my life that I was
Mm,
hurting a lot. This was just less than a year ago I wrote it. The only person who ever read it was my best friend Katie, and she
mm,
loved it. And then I went, I'll just apply and put it in this magazine. They might take it, they might not. That's the
mhm.
first issue, by the way. They're the only magazine, I will happily highlight them, only magazine that accepts only people with disabilities in
Oh,
Hmm.
it.
what did you say it was called?
Cinder
The magazine
magazine. It
Cinder?
comes out March 27th with my poem in it. I'm not
Amazing.
highlighting myself at all.
Oh, I'm
If you guys
excited
are
to read
interested in
it.
those things. But yeah, I wrote that
Good
poem,
to
and
know.
my mom has not read my poem since I was 10 years old. So when
Oh,
she read that poem, she felt my pain in it because I
mm,
talk about how the misunderstanding of others hurts me more than it hurts you. Because again, my language is different, and I've been working my whole life to try to understand a neurotypical and try to speak like one. I no
mm,
longer do that. It takes too much of my energy and too much of my spoons that I'm not willing to do it. That's why I've changed up how I do things, even on the podcast,
yeah.
of just give me a heads up. That's the only thing I ask, the very minimum of give me a heads up because I need time to process, come up with questions. That's why I did with the documentary. I chose to just do it during the documentary, watching it and writing
Yeah,
so I could save myself time of processing and just process
totally.
as I'm
As you
watching.
go. Yeah.
And I took a whole day to just process the documentary itself. But yeah, I've been changing a lot of things to meet my own needs that have never been met in my entire life, is the best way of putting it.
Mhm.
So what changed is my work got to read my ableism poem. I
Yeah.
shared it with the one person I trust there at work who's my friend and absolutely is a friend. That's exciting to say.
Mm,
And then first my mom got to read it and she almost cried reading it and reading it to my grandma
mm,
because yeah, my pain is in it. I'm not going to deny that. There's
yeah,
pain that comes with being misunderstood, and there's
of
pain
course.
that comes with being told you're stupid, you're nothing, you're not going to ever be anything your entire life. And
Mhm,
then neurotypical saying you're not good enough because
mhm,
you're not meeting them where they're at when
mhm.
I work at a different
Hmm.
level in the first place than someone who's
Yeah,
neurotypical. My language is different in the first place, so what you're asking of me, much higher and not easy to make it
Hmm.
through.
yeah. Well, I'm
And
looking forward to reading your poem.
I
Deeply.
yeah, I can even share it with you ahead of time, but if you know people that will
Ooh,
buy the
exclusive
magazine, I'll share.
access.
No, we'll support. I'll get Cinder. We'll support.
You'll get Cinder. Well, I can send you guys the poem after, well, not right after this. I'm going to be totally trained, but I will send it to
Yeah.
you at least sometime this week.
That
Love.
sounds great.
Yeah, just so you guys know. That's how I operate. But the next one is something about a horror film. I don't know why I wrote it this way, but I'm going to read it, and it's total written in the moment way.
Yeah.
Did any horror film help with editing and the visuals of your documentary?
Oh,
Mm.
wow. Oh, I really want to have a good answer to that question.
I don't know why that came about. Just so you
Oh, man, I this is one I wish I could come back to you on this because
You
I
can. You totally can. We can even
I
do a
might
quick little random just recording of it of when you're ready, and then I'll just unrecord it and then we'll add it in there.
yeah, I might have to put some thought into that one. It's a great question, and I mean not I don't have anything, kind of directly top of mind, but there was a real like intention to the visual approach and I bet I could come up with some sort of influences. But off the top of my head,
That's okay.
I'm not sure.
We could definitely come back,
But what an awesome
even if it's
question.
in the future. We can
Yeah.
come
Yeah,
back, and I could do a quick little short record. Yeah,
cool.
I understand how that is. All right, let's
Yeah.
see. I noticed I skipped some questions, so I lied to myself with how many questions I wrote. but that's okay.
That's
I
okay.
did write down a line that I just want to say was one of my favorites
Yeah.
from that was repeated towards the end of she's no broad, she's a lady, you don't know the
Mhm.
difference. That was one of my
Yep.
favorite lines. I had to write that. You needed to both know that.
Thank you for sharing
Yes.
that. It's one of my favorites too.
I just liked the way
Yeah.
it was done because it was
Yeah.
over as we were seeing these different images, and then you got to see the
Mhm.
person actually saying it, but you didn't
Yeah.
see them right away. That's what I really liked about the visuals because it kept my attention of who the heck is saying that. I
I
actually
love
had
that.
to rewind and then
Yeah.
replay it just to see fully.
I love that observation. That's great.
Thank
I
you.
love
I do see details that people sometimes hate, but you're
that.
Yes.
welcome. And then my favorite question that I like to ask everyone that I learned on the docuseries, what does for both of you your typical day, like shooting over this 6 year time period, look like?
I remember talking to you about this on Twin Flames, and I think I gave you like three different versions of what my day could look like on Twin Flames.
You
On
did.
this project, I would have to give you like 72 different versions or something. I mean, it just, there was no typical day. But I guess I can again give a little bit of a like different periods of time. In the very beginning of this project, I was working on it kind of after work. So I remember I was working on Maria Finizzo's documentary, The Dilemma of Desire, and I would work editing with her and the other editor Liz Carr all day. And then I would go to a brewery with my laptop and plug in my hard drive and get a beer and sit there for 3 hours until 11 or something working on this. And then I think I aged out of being able to do that and found I could not edit for someone else all day and then go edit my own thing. And so then kind of what it became was really trying to work on this project in an intense way between other projects, you know? So for instance, when I was cutting on Twin Flames, I think I probably was basically doing nothing on Bad Hostage. But then, you know, as soon as we wrapped, it would have been a sprint, you know, of okay, now maybe I have a little pocket of time. Now I'm going to be totally committed to this. And the work on it looked so different in different times too. You know, I have a really vivid memory of taking a road trip with my mom where I feel like I really kind of cracked the Stockholm syndrome thing. I remember like sitting around with my mom on a road trip and figuring out that connection to Stockholm syndrome and conversation with her, you know? So it's like so much of filmmaking is not just sitting at your computer or even like hitting record on a camera, but it's just the conversations you're having. You know, Max and I probably had 1,000 Zoom calls. Probably a lot of our days were, you know, hey, can you hop on a Zoom at 9 p.m. tonight or something, you
Yes.
know? Or, you know, can we, at one point, Max flew out to New York and we had that's kind of the most fun. Me and Max
Yes.
and our consulting editor, Nev, all got in a conference room together with a big whiteboard and figured out, okay, what is the structure of this film?
For like
Um,
2 days straight from like
yeah,
9 a.m. to like 9 p.m. And it was like,
Wow.
can we do it all in these 2 days? And like we walked away from it being like, okay, I think we've like,
yeah,
I mean, there was a lot of work after that, but like it
yeah.
was that intense, lot, yeah, like intense moment together was amazing.
So fun. That's those are the highlights, I think, is when you actually get to all get in a room together and talk about ideas together. So anyway, I'm really not answering your question, but
You are actually.
um,
I was still answering it because
And
I
then
do that with the director, him and I, since Jesse is busy on another project, I'm
yeah,
more playing Jesse's role a little bit too. We
yeah,
try to hop on Zoom, but being autistic, I've been putting boundary limits on that too. Just email me. I can't
totally.
right now because I have
mhm.
This
to
meeting could have been
also.
an email. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
so like the director and him and I have been trying to meet each other's needs because yes,
Yeah,
we're autistic and yes, we relate, but we also both function with our spoons differently.
totally.
So he's learning to meet me, and I already do this in my job, in my day job, so I know how to meet him pretty easily. We're pretty
Yeah.
similar in processing, but yeah, it's just, yeah, we're doing exactly the same thing of what you just described. So you are answering my question. We've
Oh,
already
good.
gotten
I'm
some
glad.
filming done, at least for this documentary. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. And I'll just add on to Mimi of like my experience was also very similar of just like I have a 9 to 5 job that's like outside of the film world. I have like other film projects that I've been on. So it was like very much like, all right, I'm like at the office 9 to 5, I come home and let me just like do work until like 9 p.m. and then get on a call with Mimi at 9 and then like rinse and repeat tomorrow. And it looked very different at various moments. I think like Mimi, like I love the like coming together and like putting our heads together, whether it was in that editing session or we had like some feedback screenings that like
Yeah.
I'll always remember like 2021, like right before Mimi left to Brooklyn and she was still in Chicago, we had a feedback screening at Cartemquin and we got together and just listened to like 20 brilliant people talk about an early rough cut, or I guess like an advanced rough cut of film for like 2 hours. And like that was amazing. And like coming together and like speaking about it was a lot of it, but also like so much of my work on the film too was as archival producer. And so much of that was literally just me in this room, like headphones on, watching hours and hours and hours of footage, just like trying to pick out like this 30 seconds could be something that I send along to Mimi. This one image could be something that I think could really like work. So like a lot of it was like even though I was doing solo work, I was like having conversations in my head with Mimi of like,
Mhm.
ooh, I think Mimi will really like this clip of this like police PSA of the cop is your friend from the 1960s that I found in this random archive somewhere. So like archival producing is very interesting in that way because it was like so much alone time, but like I'm constantly like as I'm watching, I'm dialoguing with like what would Mimi like what would in this case editor and director what can I kind of provide to be like, ooh, this is something that I think would be interesting. And so many times Mimi would come back to me and be like, yeah, maybe. And I'd be like, no, but and then I would have to, there's so like, I found so much footage that I'm just like, I need to do something with this someday because truly,
Totally.
like, it's like sifting for gold and you find diamonds and it's like, oh, but we don't need diamonds right now.
It's
It's a
true.
very fun process.
Max found some absolute gems that didn't make the final cut, which is kind
Which,
of a heartbreaker.
Oh
oh, but
man.
entirely the right decision.
But
Like,
but it's brutal. I mean, it's almost
yes.
it's so funny because you talk a lot, people talk a lot about like what footage did you shoot that's on the cutting room floor, But it's the
Yeah.
same with the archive, like
Hmm.
shoot amazing stuff and you can't use it, and you're like, oh, but you also can find amazing things and then not use them, and that's a heartbreak too. So
It
Yeah.
is. I actually fully agree with that. I know right now, at least with, because a lot of this is like same, equal. The director and I, at least, because Jesse and I, at least, did the first year talked more, but now it's just between the director and I more of, because, like I said, Jesse's doing some other projects right now, but paid projects, I assume, because this one's not paid right now. We've been sending, like, I've already sent a bunch of ideas for who we are interviewing, and
mm,
some of them actually have boundaries as a disabled person that I had to try to explain to him need to be respected. So we
yeah.
need to first get certain things in place, and then I'll follow through with it.
Yeah.
Because some people with disabilities, especially those who are not white, best way of putting it, and I want to make sure we get their voice in our documentary at least, and nonverbal. Be more precise on that. Not white and nonverbal. I want their stories in our documentary, and I found one very specific one who's very, very vocal and very awesome, and I would love to have her speak through her AAC of her experience of not seeing herself represented in media. And if she is represented, which I've seen very few little bits, if it's accurate or if it's not, I just really want to have, just like with the docuseries, I wanted your guys' voices most of all. Again, in Paul and Cecilia, their voices are heard all the time. You guys don't get your voices heard or the hard work you do behind the scenes. That's the point of my podcast is unheard voices,
Mhm.
is I want you guys, just like Max. Max is archival, just like Jesse, of not
Yes.
being heard. You're like the underdogs that do a lot of the heavy lifting that don't get the credit for what you do. That's the whole point of, again, my podcast and my true crime. I like voices that aren't heard. And I guess
Mhm.
I've been applying that to the current documentary I'm into and had to try to describe that to the director because he didn't fully It's not like he couldn't understand, because I want people to get that. It's just the processing of understand of, hey, so this person who has a disability has a boundary. We have to respect that boundary and first follow through
Mhm.
with this before we do that. Because I believe in respecting every person's boundary and every person's, especially if they're disabled, because they never get their boundaries respected. I'm just being honest.
Real.
I've
Yeah.
never had mine
Yeah.
respected until recently. Yeah, they don't get that and they don't get that recognition or those voices. So that's why I'm really, really happy to even get the before, because I did interview Mimi originally a little bit on Bad Hostage when she was just starting. So it's nice to have the
Mhm.
before and after.
That's right. We've come full circle.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited. That's why with Jesse, I know he's done 3 or 4 projects, but they're all him just editing. And
Right.
he's doing a lot of roles. I don't know them all. I would have to recheck in with Jesse on that. But
I have to
they've
recheck it
been,
with Jesse too. It's been too long.
well, Jesse's, I know right now highlighting one documentary that they did years and years ago that is now just starting to get recognition on pregnant, trans, and then another one I didn't even know they
Yeah.
did of someone who is not white, but I don't remember his name. Darn it. I hate when I do this. I need to write down names.
It's hard to remember everything.
I know a lot of names. Oh, let's see. Oh, how did you get the voices? You kind of talk about this already, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. How did you get the voices of the hostages recordings? Because they're throughout the series.
You mean the Christine and Patricia?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and unfortunately, I think this is gonna have to be my last question
that's
because
okay.
I'm done in a few minutes.
It's all right.
But so it's all archival material. So, like I said, the only original interview we did was with, or interviews we did were with my own family. Christine Enmark's voice, who we hear throughout the film, and it's an amazing interview. That was an interview done by a kind of journalist named Terrence Mickey, who has a really wonderful podcast, or had a really wonderful podcast called Memory Motel, and had done this interview with Christine Enmark previously. So we reached out to Terrence about using that interview, and that's where that came from. And then Max found just a huge amount of archival material of Patty Hearst, and we used just different kind of clips from those interviews on television or from various places to hear her voice. I don't know if you want to add to that at all, Max, but
Yeah, yeah, the Patty and the Christine archival of like their voices during the hostage situations are really interesting because Christine, I found tons of like contemporaneous archival of her, like she called into the radio station like while she was on the bank. She like had a phone call with the Prime Minister of Sweden while she was in the bank, which is just like mind-boggling that she was able to. She just like called up the office and was like, "Hey, yeah, it's me. I'm in the bank right now. Like, I'd love to speak to the Prime Minister." To basically chastise him for the police response and be like, listen, like I am scared of the cops right now. And so we've got this like incredible archival of like we're hearing Christine like in the moment, like day 3 of like her experiencing the sausage situation and like telling the head of state of her country, like, listen, like this is what I am going through and this is what I need. And he just doesn't listen. And he's just like, wouldn't it feel good for you to like there's this line that I was just like I can't believe like the head of state told this 23-year-old woman in a hostage situation like wouldn't it feel good for you to die on your post. And so like hearing that like finding that archival from Christine was like deeply powerful of like here is a woman like expressing like her moment by moment like experience in this like life and death situation. You could hear it in her voice like how she's like needing to like she's putting it on herself to like keep it all together and then she's like being told to die by the prime minister. So that's like one. And then the other side with Patty Hearst, like a lot of the archival of like her voice, like while she was a hostage and while she was kidnapped by the SLA, it's these coerced tapes of like she was forced to record these tapes that then got proliferated out to the media. And at first, like when these tapes were coming out, like everyone was like, well, obviously, like she has been kidnapped and like what she is saying like is being forced out of her. And then there's the like after she is implicated in this bank robbery, after that moment, all of the tapes, like that benefit of the doubt is gone. And it's like the tapes that are coming out, that is true. And that is what Patricia Hearst is saying. And so it's like you're getting this like it's the same she's in the same situation, but like the mediation of it and the narrativization of it goes from like obviously you can't believe what she's saying when like she's being forced to say these things to you have to believe her when she says that she is now Tanya and she's now like a member of the SLA. So it's interesting, like the levels of like truth and the way that truth gets kind of like mediated for both of them was and very interesting, like digging into the archival. Yeah, and just like such a for the film, like such a gold mine of just like getting into these conversations of like listening in the moment. And both of these were like such like right at the time when like TV and like mass media coverage were like happening like even closer and closer to like in the moment. So to get these kind of recordings of like them in the moment and then to like kind of question like what are we hearing and what can we believe in the moment is it's a fascinating thing to be able to include in the film.
I'm sorry, guys. With that, I think I have to
Yes.
run.
Go, Mimi, go.
One.
Yes.
This has been such a pleasure, though. Thank you so much
So
for
lovely.
having us, Jesse. It's really
Thank
good
you,
to see
guys.
you.
Yes. And so excited to read your poem and to hear about whenever you're ready.